Well, a rumor dropped a couple of days ago, and now it's confirmed. And, well, I told you this was coming. Stephen Knight, according to Deadline, is confirmed to have left the Rey Palpatine movie, a movie that nobody was looking forward to. And a matter of fact, the drama of trying to get this film made is probably going to wind up being better than anything Kathleen Kennedy manages to fart out on the silver screen. And that's if she's even still there when this movie ever comes out, if it ever comes out. Renegade Online. But this, according to our friend Anthony D'Alessandro over there at Deadline, search for the new scribe on Daisy Ridley's Star Wars movie is underway after a Stephen Knight exit. So they did manage to confirm this. So let me kind of give you my 2 cents on this, and this is laughably bad. It continues to go and show you just how absolutely incompetent and ridiculous and just has to be the worst studio head in the history of all of Hollywood. Kathleen Kennedy continues to fail and fail and fail, just even at the most basic levels of her job. And that is bringing in talent, people like writers and directors to complete major projects, because that's all you're supposed to be doing at Lucasfilm. In fact, making Star Wars content, making television shows, and especially making theatrical releases. And she is absolutely hilariously ill-equipped. But yet there are people out there that will continue to gaslight you that Kathleen Kennedy is somehow the greatest, most accomplished thing that ever coasted through Hollywood. And again, I continue to remind folks that were it not for the men that brought her to the dance, she wouldn't be there. I've joked in the past and referred to her as kind of the Hillary Clinton of Hollywood. It's really not that much different. Without people like Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, and add in Richard Donner and Robert Zemeckis, and the list could go on and on and on. Well, without all these guys out there who have created some of the greatest films of all time that Kathleen Kennedy was along for the ride to participate in as an executive producer, well, you can see what she does on her own, and it's not much. Stephen Knight, no surprise, a very, very talented writer that, honestly, I don't even know how they wound up procuring to begin with. Stephen Knight, I suppose, like most other folks out there, probably took one look at this and said, hey, look, if I've got a chance to actually work on a Star Wars project, that would be pretty amazing. Let me see what I can do. And I would love to eventually one day see whatever script that he did write leak out so we can all see what he tried to accomplish here with what bits and pieces of whatever's left of Star Wars at this point he was handed to work with, mostly Rey. But I'm sure the story is the same as it has been in the past. Stephen Knight had his own designs on what to do to try to actually write a good film, or at least as good a one as he possibly could write, given the circumstances. And instead, he was probably stopped over and over again by Kathleen Kennedy, who was wholly incompetent in her job and probably gave him a bunch of terrible ideas. And he finally said, I don't need this. I'm not going to embarrass myself with a Kathleen Kennedy film that she wants me to write, and he walked. Now, of course, he's working on his own Peaky Blinders movie right now, which many of you know I'm a huge Peaky Blinders fan and have been from the beginning. And that's why part of me was very excited to see Stephen Knight actually take up the reins for this. But let's talk about where we go from here and what else might have happened in this absolute dumpster fire.
So, guys, across Valiant, Renegade, That Park Place, thatparkplace.com, the Pro Channel, we've been ahead, Midnight's Edge as well, and of course, Derek Anderson. We've been ahead, I think, of the mainstream news as well as the access news. Folks who've been following our channels have known what's going on all along with this movie, way ahead. You heard the exclusive announcement before anyone else that the Rey movie was going to happen and that Daisy Ridley was going to be on the stage at Star Wars Celebration. Others said, no, that's not going to happen. There's no way. It did. We called it. Then, here on Valiant Renegade and with Jonas J. Campbell, they were calling that Stephen Knight was exiting and something was happening, and it all had to do with the Peaky Blinders stuff. Jonas, give us a walkthrough real quick of how all of this has played out and why perhaps we're now looking at a situation where Kathleen Kennedy will no longer be the head of Lucasfilm if and when the Rey movie ever releases.
Well, first of all, we can go all the way back to Star Wars Celebration, where I don't want to go too deep into that, but there was a prediction that Kathleen Kennedy was going to be fired, is going to be shown the door, some kind of grand celebration of her, and it was going to be announced that she would be retiring. But instead, we get the announcement of this Rey movie. Before that, we had seen that Daisy Ridley was showing up at the Lucasfilm offices every now and then in the December of the previous year, things like that. And eventually, I want to say January of the following year, maybe I'm wrong on the date, Damon Lindelof exited the project, as well as Justin Britt Gibson, and replaced by Stephen Knight. Ever since then, Stephen Knight, who is the creator of Peaky Blinders, has had constant Peaky Blinders news coming out, whether or not it's, of course, the fact that Cillian Murphy is signed on, Rebecca Ferguson, Barry Keoghan. I want to say Tim Roth is going to be in this film. Every one of those big names that attaches themselves to this Peaky Blinders film, it's going to necessitate some level of rewrite each time that happens. Then it comes out that that Daisy Ridley hasn't seen a script yet, even though she's talking about how she's seen elements of what's going on. But you're going to hear about it soon. The script is coming. Oh yeah, it's going any day now, any week now.
And you got to feel sorry for her, Jonas. I mean, of all the people, she has nothing to do with any of the failure.
Oh, no, of course not. She's just smiling politely. She's doing everything that she's probably been told one thing. She's probably not tracking the Rey movie news as closely as we are.
Do you think she, at panel, anybody who wants to win, Tom, you may know this. This is outside of my wheelhouse. I wonder if she was signed and if she's making money regardless.
That's what I was curious about too. I mean, I'm sure. Here's the thing: my understanding of this is that the way these deals work is you get some kind of signing bonus. If you have to wait a certain amount of time, you'll get like a retainer of sorts. But until the job is actually done, you don't actually get paid. Is my understanding. So I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong on that. They maybe paid her, but that's the thing. If they did, they paid her that big chunk up front. This movie's happening, kids. Like, that's just it. And the fact that they moved the date tells a lot, because Blade, I don't think they gave a new date to. I think that just got completely
off the schedule.
Removed.
You're right.
This just got a new date. So that still says that they're still planning on moving forward with this.
What's our new date?
I think it's 27.
There's no way.
Well, and then paired with this is the fact that all of a sudden Lucasfilm is leaking out that the Dawn of the Jedi movie is going to be filming next year.
And they just finished Mando.
There's no way this comes out in there's no way it can come out in 28. If it's,
I think to the
I agree with you, but yeah.
I think to Tom's point that the fact that Daisy Ridley may have been already taken care of, they may push her to the Sean Levy movie. I've heard some rumors that Sean Levy's Star Wars movie might feature Rey or some version of Rey. Maybe not. It's not about Rey, but she's in the movie, so that may be a way where they say, okay, look, this film, a Rey-centric movie is just not something anybody wants. I don't know anyone that cares about this character that much. But a movie with Rey in it, but it may have some other characters in it. That might be the direction that they're trying to go, because it looks like this thing is just DOA. It's not going to make any money. It's not going to be a positive, branding for Star Wars. It's just not going to do what
There's no financial feasibility, Derek. There's none.
There's none. So why do it? Why go forward?
There's a required budget, and then there's a implicit potentiality, and those numbers don't add up to making this thing.
Yeah. Everything around this that surrounds a Rey movie is just bad, from the director and all of her commentary to Rey as a character herself. The sequel trilogy was nothing but the diminishing returns. Every single, episode of the sequel was worse than the last, and people just don't resonate with this character. I don't see any reason to push forward with this, but this is Lucasfilm. This is Kathleen Kennedy, so who knows? But I still think, ultimately, they won't. I don't think this film happens. I think there's going to be so many, problems with getting this thing off the ground that it's just not going to happen. And they'll say, all right, Daisy, we're just going to put you in Sean Levy's movie. Sean Levy has a role for you, and you're going to still be Rey, and maybe it's 20 years later or whatever. But I think that's
no, Derek. Derek, it can't be that. I want to go to Lauren, but Derek, it can't be that. What they're going to do is they're going to bring in James Mangold, Remember, he's getting his Dawn of the Jedi, so he's going to go into production next year. And by the way, that's why I say this cannot come out until 2028. That's the soonest, because they're not going to shoot 2 Star Wars films at the same time. That's too financially risky. And so if Mangold gets his next year to go into production, then Rey can't go into production until 26. And there's no way they're going to bring out something that goes in production for Star Wars the next year. These are 2-year minimum. Really, they need 3 to 4 years. But what they're going to do, Lauren, you ready for this? I know how they can fix it. I hope Kathy's not listening. Bob, turn off your set. Lauren, they're going to get James Mangold to do the Dawn of the Jedi. And when they do the Dawn of the Jedi, do you know who the first Jedi was?
Hit me.
It's not Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh.
It's Rey.
Not Jennifer Lawrence.
It's
That's what
Rey.
I just said. It's Rey. I was right. Yay. I got candy.
She's all the Jedi, Lauren. She
She goes through the world between worlds.
She's the Alpha and the Omega.
Actually, you
the
know what? I
beginning.
think I know where Pro is going with this. What we're going to find out is they're going to retcon that. We'll find out that she wasn't actually necessarily a Palpatine all this time. Palpatine himself is a clone of Rey,
Yes!
who was the first
Yes!
Jedi. Bingo. I gotcha.
When it comes down to it, I know James Mangold is a team player, which is why he keeps getting jobs in Hollywood. And the funny thing is, you got your Ford v Ferraris and your Logans and things like that, and he seems to be really good at making movies that appeal to older men. I'll say that. So in many ways, he was a natural choice for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And they added an ingredient to that production that I don't think anyone really could have anticipated. How that, and I'm just going to say it, Kathleen Kennedy and whatever estrogen-fueled ideas that she had about Indiana Jones turned him into a loser. And nobody wants to see Han Solo murdered by his son for completely unclear reasons. It kind of looks like he wanted to be murdered too, which,
Well, when he was a kid, Han refused to take him the Millennium Falcon to get chicken nuggets.
He wanted to go to Tashi Station and pick up some power converters.
Exactly.
Kathleen Kennedy is obviously the differential here, because she was the one in charge of that film. Bob Iger, by the time that thing came out, was most likely not in charge of that film. And in the end, Indiana Jones is a sad divorcee living in an apartment by himself. If in 30 years they made a movie about a haggard old Rey that maybe had put on a little weight and was living in on an island by herself,
drinking a blue beer,
hanging out with a bunch of cats, and somebody showed up, and
she's got it. No. She's got.
I think they would understand how disrespectful that would be.
Yeah, I know y'all were talking about the Star Wars rearrange here. It looks like a prediction I had months ago was going to come true. Stephen Knight, Part 1, that's already taken care of. He's not part of it anymore. No surprise. He doesn't want to put up with Kathleen Kennedy's stuff. As soon as he talked about a couple of months ago the Peaky Blinders movie, working on that, I'm like, he's out. He's absolutely going to be out. It's a matter of time before it gets announced. Here we are. And like I said, a year ago, when what's his name, the first guy they had that disappeared,
Damon Lindelof.
Lindelof, thank you very much, Jonas. Yeah, as soon as he was out, I was like, eventually this is going to turn into a movie that not only will Charmin Obaid-Chinoy be directing, but she will also be given screenwriting credits. So that is the next shoe to drop. I'm banking, if this movie even makes it.
And I think that's going to be horrible. I mean, she's a documentary filmmaker, and I'm not saying that makes her incapable of writing. There is a very specific skill set that goes into making documentaries. And there's more writing in there than people would realize. But
Especially
we
if you're
all know
Michael
what
Moore.
her comments have been in the past.
Well,
I don't
she
think
likes
Disney
making
understands.
men feel uncomfortable, and I mean that's right up Kathleen Kennedy and Disney's alley, right? So, we're gonna keep making men feel uncomfortable with Star Wars. That will proceed as planned, and nobody will go watch it, and it will lose a ton of money once again, or they can scrap it, like y'all were talking about. The timeline is iffy now because they just wrapped, allegedly, filming of the Mando Grogu movie. The next one up appears to be, you would think, James Mangold, which, hey, maybe that one will go as well as Dial of Destiny, kids. I think Rey will be the first Jedi. I think Pro's right, probably so.
But where do you begin the production schedule of a Rey movie? So we don't even have a script. We're still at stage 1. They walked Daisy Ridley out on that stage in April of last year. It's going to have been almost 2 years that they walked Daisy Ridley out on that stage in London for Star Wars Celebration. It's going to be at least 2 years, April of 2025, before we potentially even have a script that is green lightable. I can't even imagine.
They're just waiting for AI to catch up so they can have AI write it, you know.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.